Make sure you don't miss a thing. Go to starzology.com/newsletter and sign up. Welcome to the Starzology Astrology Podcast. I am your host, Alison Price, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Arwynne O'Neill.
Hello, Alison. It's great to be here again.
So nice to have you once more. So in this episode, we're going to be talking about the transit of Jupiter entering Cancer.
Yeah. This is a good one. This is an exciting one. Jupiter is one of those planets that spends quite a while in each sign. It spends a little over a year in each sign. So it has we talked about this in our most recent Saturn episode, but it is one of the social planets. So it's not a transpersonal planet. It's not a generational planet, but it definitely defines an entire year's worth of people.
Yes.
So in that sense, and I think we've talked about this in a previous Jupiter episode, it has correspondences with the Chinese zodiac. And it's not a one-to-one thing because it does shift a bit. It's not happening on the Chinese New Year. It happens these days in the summer. So Jupiter this time around will be in Cancer from June 9th, 2025 to June 30th, 2026.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's just on a year.
Just literally over a year.
Spending a year in Cancer.
Yeah.
Leaving Gemini behind.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So let's have a look at then what does Jupiter, what are themes for Jupiter in general?
Yeah. So Jupiter is the largest planet in our solar system by far. There were thoughts at some point speculation that it was a failed star.
Oh yes,
and they've kind of debunked that, but it's still it's still very valid symbolically because Jupiter is kind of like the benevolent father figure of the zodiac or of the solar system. And if you just kind of Google like Jupiter symbology, you'll probably get pictures of and he was Zeus in Greek mythology. Jupiter in Roman mythology, which took, basically kind of renamed and
same guy.
Remixed all same guy, exactly. Same guy, same dude. And so if you look for pictures of Jupiter the god, you will see this bearded, benevolent, toga wearing, with the ivy, not ivy, what's it called? Olive leaves or whatever around his crown, and just this plenty, kind of plentiful is one great keyword for Jupiter.
Yes.
But it's a benevolent, higher sort of octave kind of thing. And
good
benevolent leadership and positive sort of role model. Yeah.
Yeah. And isn't he like the king of the gods as well? How do they refer to that? I'm not quite sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like
because he's the biggest.
The father of the gods.
Yeah.
Exactly. And he's the benevolent leader and godfather.
Yeah.
Godfather. Well, not in a sinister way, but just the god.
So mythologically, he's got there's lots of stories about it.
Yes. And of course there's a lot of stories, more so about Zeus because we tend to sort of lean more on the Greek gods in modern mythological stories.
Okay.
Yeah. They get mixed up a lot, but you hear Zeus as a god more than you hear Jupiter as a god, I think.
I see.
But Zeus, Zeus has a bit more of like kind of a, there's no other word that comes to mind than kind of rapey kind of reputation nowadays. He was a ladies' man, and they weren't always the most willing of ladies, unfortunately. But he had the wife, the long-suffering wife Hera, or Juno, I believe.
Yeah,
and she's like the goddess of women and holding down the home for it, but also of politics and of wisdom and all these things. But Zeus was just philandering and kind of like changing himself into like a swan or a deer or whatever to like find some ripe young maiden and chase her off into the forest and have his way with her. And so I mean that probably went over better like in the ancient times. Oh, that Zeus, he's like the ladies' man, and now we're just like hashtag me too.
And isn't he also then Thor in the Nordic?
Yeah, he was the father of Odin. Odin was like
Odin. Okay,
yeah. So we're mixing our metaphors a bit, but if you watched the Thor movies, which why wouldn't you?
Well, of course. Why wouldn't I?
There was a great not episode, but there was one of them. I can't remember the exact movie it was in. Anyone who's seen all the Marvel movies will like, oh, that's that one. Where Russell Crowe played Zeus, hilariously actually, and is just this belligerent, like awful kind of guy.
Okay.
To be outsmarted and overthrown before he did too much damage.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's one take on Jupiter. But we are going to focus on the positive because
absolutely
that's how we do.
But isn't that where the Thursday came from? That Jupiter's Thursday, right?
Thursday, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah. But okay, yeah. So astrologically, the themes for Jupiter are optimism, abundance, expansion, luck.
Yeah.
It's like positivity, unbounded almost, that good things will come. And they call it, don't they, the greater benefic, the big good guy.
Yeah.
And so that's why the trine is his aspect as well. It's the good, easy trine and good things come your way, but maybe too many.
Right, exactly. So in your own personal chart where you have Jupiter, like what sign Jupiter is in and also what house Jupiter is in, it's typically where things come to you in abundance and for better or worse, depending on the aspects and the flavor of your Jupiter. But it tends to be where you just kind of, where things come to you and you end up having abundance or your natural skill maybe will be expressed.
Yeah. And so for you, where's your Jupiter then?
In the third house.
So this is just a classic placement then of overabundance of what you do.
Words, of books, of
connecting,
trivia. Yeah.
Of communication, information, and you're definitely up there with it, right? Yeah.
Podcasting, of communications in my title at work.
Yeah.
And I write my blog.
And you're a prolific writer. Come on.
And I'm always listening to audiobooks or buying new books.
So that's really a combination of the knowledge and the information coming together. So it's a good combination.
Jupiter in the third house is what I call the information junkie placement, regardless of what
the information junkie.
Yeah. So you just wherever Jupiter falls in your chart, it's that
the junkie.
Blanket junkie. Yeah.
Okay, so that's super interesting. So Jupiter is generally a good planet. It's moving around, changing signs once a year, which is great. So it's going to be moving into Cancer, as we said. So let's have a look at Cancer then.
Yeah, so Cancer is the sign of family, of motherhood. So we're having a sort of father-mother kind of energy when we talk about Jupiter and Cancer. Jupiter is that fatherly, that godfather. And then we have Cancer, which is the mother. So Jupiter in Cancer is very much about instinctive nurturing.
Right.
It's about childcare. It's about the home, comfort, real estate.
Yes.
In a way, anything to do with the home, but specifically about the expansion of the home. So expanding your home and maybe inviting new people into your home or expanding your empire in such a way that you now are acquiring more.
Putting on an addition or something.
Putting on an addition, exactly.
Or a laneway houses, which are very popular now, aren't they?
Yeah, in Vancouver, for sure. Yeah.
So I believe it's also in exaltation in Cancer.
Ooh.
So it's well placed. It's Jupiter does well in these positions.
Yeah, and it's not any place. It's one of those things where it's never going to be like, oh, you've got Jupiter, that's bad. Like, no, it's it's like having Venus in.
It's good news.
Yeah, it's always good news. And Jupiter is about zeal and excitement and expansion.
Yes.
So it's great to have that in a compassionate, emotional water sign, a cardinal water sign. And we'll talk a bit more about the cardinal bit later because there is a bit of a pileup this year in 2025 in cardinal signs. Jupiter in Cancer will be squaring Saturn in Aries in June. And that is going to be an interesting thing because that doesn't happen often.
No.
And so that's another, there's a lot of cardinality. We've talked about that. Go listen to our Saturn in Aries episode for more about that cardinal energy of 2025 because it's super interesting. And so an excess of emotion is possible. An excess of compassion, which is, could be an overdoing it thing. You could have the urge to mother tips into the urge to smother someone, to be overly protective, to be overly, what's the word? Isolationist, because you don't want to go out of your comfort zone. Clannish, exactly. Ooh, yeah, there's a double-edged sword for sure, because it is also about
patriotism.
Yeah, exactly. So that, whatever your country is first.
Yes, us and them, right?
Yeah. Raise your hand if you if you can think of an example in our current climate.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of examples, actually.
Yes.
A lot of examples where various countries are feeling pressured to assert themselves in ways that they haven't before, or haven't had to in a while, and everyone's kind of like reassessing their boundaries and borders and what does it mean to be an ally or.
I agree. Yes.
So that's
so
all Cancer stuff too. It's not just about the home; it's about the homeland.
The homeland, exactly, and
Yeah.
But for the man in the street now, for our everyday listener, this is taking a shift because Jupiter's moving out of Gemini, where it was struggling to express itself. Now it has a far better chance of expressing itself to bring opportunity for people in the nature of Cancer, which is established, but it depends in which house it's happening in your actual chart, where the transiting Jupiter is occurring, and where this is going to go down for you.
Yeah. Let's do a few keywords to bear in mind. So Jupiter in Cancer, nurturing connection, growth and wisdom.
Yes.
In intuitive and emotional realms, home-centered and security-oriented, but also about the prosperity and acquisition that has to do with your home. Okay. So putting wealth into your home, or investing into your home, or investing in your family.
Yes, that's a great thing, though, isn't it?
Oh my God, amazing!
It really is.
And anything that you can do to ensure your prosperity and your security in the future is very much a Jupiter in Cancer thing. Yeah. If you're investing in something that is going to appreciate over time and is not like gambling with the stock market and going to high risk, whatever. No, going to something that's a low yield, but it's gonna happen. You're gonna just slowly build and gradually expand and increase your security and the security of your loved ones and your legacy and your family and all that stuff. Yeah. So, and also the prosperity that comes from emotional attachments. So security of love, of family ties, and expanding your family
and belonging. Yeah,
and belonging, exactly. Mm-hmm. And if you have people in your life who are having children or buying a home or whatever, finding ways to support them and keep them in your life, because that can also, even though they're experiencing their own expansion, that can also be a very isolating time, as you, the mother of several children, 4 children, know that as much as you're, that's a wonderful time when you're expanding your family and you're devoting so much time and energy and love to your own little pod. That can be a very isolating time because friends and extended family can fall by the wayside. Yes. And so if you have people in your life who are in that situation where they're branching out and expanding their families, make sure to keep in touch and don't let them feel isolated in this wonderful, transitional time in their lives. That maybe they've had to move out to the suburbs or, to afford a home that they can raise their family in. And, they might be feeling isolated in ways that in our society, it's sort of shameful to admit, I've got all these wonderful things happening for me, but yet I'm lonely because I used to have this support network of all my, not just the bros, but, your sports team or your, the people who you played poker with once a week or, just anyone who, used to call you and now they feel like, oh, well, I don't want to bother them. They're probably not getting a lot of sleep. Just shoot them a text, honestly.
It's true. Yeah. And I do think that because Jupiter's to do with expansion and inflation, that house prices will go up during this period. Oh, it will probably only happen during, I would say, the first month that Jupiter enters Cancer, where suddenly, not that I know that much about the stock exchange, but really it is real estate, and prices are likely to balloon, but I don't think they can sustain.
Yeah.
So what am I saying? Well, if you're buying, wait. And if you're selling, try and close the deal because it's not going to hold.
Yeah.
That initial, because to me, Jupiter's image is always of the hot air balloon, where it's this great big colourful thing, but it's lacking substance if you're not careful.
Yeah.
So even though you're priced, they might say, "Oh, we'll give you 800,000 for your house." I would say take it because it may not be there 2 months down the line as Jupiter gets into Cancer, because it's only that kind of first period as it enters where the real energy comes forward. I think.
Yeah, not a time to hold out for more. A time to
exactly
to jump on getting what you can and holding out for like the long term. And that
not that I'm buying. I don't suppose you are either, but I'm not around here.
Absolutely not. But it is interesting. I do watch a lot of, these short little YouTube clips where, and of course now they feed me, the algorithm knows that I'm kind of interested in like what's going on with the housing, not the housing market in terms of buying per se, but just because renters are now overtaking in a lot of studies, there's this renting culture, and a lot of countries that are not the US and Canada, that's much more of a normal thing.
Right.
And it's kind of a thing where if you've invested in property already and you are a homeowner, that's a terrifying thing because you don't want your property value to go down.
Right.
But for everyone else, it would be great if housing prices went down.
Yes.
For the overall culture, it would be a wonderful thing if homes were not just about investing and making as much as you possibly can, and maybe hoarding a bunch of homes and then trying to rent them out at extremely expanded prices. It's just it's kind of a terrible thing that we've gotten into because real estate has been like the most valuable thing for so long. And especially,
it still is.
Yeah, I mean, especially in Canada, it is the most valuable market of all of everything. And we have oil sands and whatnot, but real estate is even more valuable. And I was talking to someone today a coworker who's in the U.S. and he was jokingly, of course, as they always do, joking about like if we have to move to Canada, blah blah blah. And I'm like, well, yeah, come on up, etc. And he's like, well, I've heard that housing is really expensive there. And I'm like,
you've no idea.
Isn't it expensive everywhere? But I'm like, yeah, it is. I mean. Yeah.
Yes. Well, we're the second most expensive city in the country. So, and we can believe it. But it's not just the housing. I think rents too, I see, are going up.
Oh my God, yeah, insane.
Although there are laws in place that it can only go up at a certain percentage, which is fair enough. So if you've been renting a long time, you actually are winning the battle because you're lower than what they can charge for the empty place.
In some places they call it rent control, and we are very fortunate in Vancouver to have that as a thing. But it's not foolproof. There are
it still goes up.
And you hear about these horror stories of people whose rent has suddenly gone up like 800%, and you're like, what the. How did this happen?
So I was in the elevator the other day with a guy, and I'd never seen him before in my life. And he said he'd just moved in, and he was telling me he was paying X, Y, Z for his rent. And I said, "Gosh," and it was twice what I'm paying. And he said, "What are you paying?" I said, "Oh, the same as you," because I didn't want to tell him because we've been here so long that we are still on this lower curve.
Yes, we've both been in the same building for about a decade.
Yeah, longer.
Yeah, and I've known several people who moved in more recently than that, and they. Yeah, exactly. They pay about double.
So I don't know how they do it, but
it's terrifying.
So while Jupiter is in Cancer, this is going to be a thing: inflation and excessive if you're not careful. So one has to be careful at this point, as well.
Does Jupiter in Cancer mean more roommates?
Well, it would do because it would be easy to pay the rent.
Yeah. I know a lot of people who have roommates, and they're not that much younger than me.
Yeah, exactly. No. It's got nothing to do with age.
No.
It's to do with that we can't afford to live alone. And even I was thinking, gosh, I should have taken a roommate here. And I'm thinking, well, where would I put them?
Right.
But the thought crossed my mind, and it has never, ever crossed my mind before.
Yeah.
Because I'd probably kill them. But...
So
economically,
that's not an advertisement at all.
But economically, what is the solution? That people are looking for places to stay because they can't afford to live separately. So you've got these multi-level. You've got someone in the basement, someone on the first floor, someone on the second floor, and families are in these homes. Yeah. So the point being that this is going to add to it, but it won't last. That's what I wanted to say about all that.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. The silver lining.
Yes. Yeah. And of course it does depend, I think, in which house this Jupiter is for you. Yes. So this Jupiter's moving into Cancer for you, and that's going to be in your 8th house, is that correct? Looks like it from here.
Yes. Yeah, Cancer is my 8th house. So eventually it will conjunct my Saturn,
Yes.
which is a lovely thought. That's an interesting
That's an interesting combination.
Yeah.
But at the moment, you've got this expansion through this 8th house feeling. And whilst it's still in Gemini, the expansion has been that, yes, you are blogging, and yes, you are putting out, I don't know, 1,200 words a week or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
And you're putting things out and you're spreading the word and doing these sort of things and meeting new people and lots of things going on.
New job and all that.
And as it moves into Cancer, that is likely to, well, you work from home anyway.
I do. I absolutely work from home. Yeah.
That is likely to continue as Jupiter moves into Cancer too, that the opportunities for work from home would increase.
Yeah. And I have to say, I mean, there's some, for me, it's probably about like future thinking financially, those kind of things that as a person with Neptune in the 2nd house, I am always kind of like afraid of and don't like to think about. Because securing the financial future through, kind of like
investments and whatnot.
Yeah.
You did say earlier you were talking to somebody about that. So this would
exactly. We have this delightful accountant now.
Okay.
Thank God.
So whilst this occurs, as Jupiter brings opportunities and growth for your investments during this period, whilst it is in the 8th house, that would be a great time to, squirrel your money wherever it's
in the right place.
Do put some somewhere.
Growth. Yes.
Get it out the mattress.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's not doing anyone any good in its proverbial mattress. Yeah.
Super interesting. So anyway, in my chart, I've got this Jupiter is at the moment in my 11th house. It's in Gemini. It's going to move into Cancer.
Yeah.
And the 11th house is I've got 2 large houses, and that is one of them, the other being the 5th. So this is, of course, the 11th house is all about groups, what you do in community, and your social impact as well.
Your social network, your friend group, but also your any kind of communities or groups that you belong to or that you
established. So when Jupiter actually moved into my 11th house way back in Taurus, this is when I established these newsletters, what I'm doing now. And for those of you who don't know, you need to get on the newsletter list, and you can sign up at starzology.com/newsletter. But I don't just do astrology. I also have an art community, which I do newsletters for, and also a crafting one as well, which is something else that we haven't even mentioned. But and this was recently, as Jupiter is moving towards this Cancerian position in the middle of this 11th house, what I'm finding now is that the art newsletter and community is outstripping astrology. And I would never have said that would have happened.
And it's amazing because the amount of time you've spent on
hours, days, weeks.
And the art one is tiny in comparison with you've just done like handful.
Just since like October.
Yeah.
I've started to, as Jupiter went into my 11th house, I thought, I've got a more opinion. Let me share my thoughts.
Yeah. And you're like sending it out into the universe, and all of a sudden the universe has just gone, oh, cool, and just piled on.
It's crazy.
It's amazing.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
So hopefully, that's Jupiter in Gemini, where I'm talking and talking and talking to my community, and it's you guys listening on the podcast too who are getting the newsletter, and why not?
And when Jupiter moves into Cancer, do they start talking back?
Ooh, the thought. Well, people are contacting me all the time. It's what I call my chit chat, because people will always respond to whatever newsletter I send out. Someone, Jane from Boise will let me know something or whatever.
Yeah.
And
hello, Jane from Boise. We love you.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But as Jupiter moves into Cancer in the 11th house, which will now be the 3rd sign for me in the 11th house of this community, I'm hoping that it's going to become more of a family-oriented or more of a tribal, clannish type vibe.
Community. Yeah.
Yes, maybe that's the word.
Yeah.
And that's just because you only attract what you put out. So and I'm not for everyone. I know this,
Well,
let's get real.
Anyone who's listening whose Venn diagram of interest encompasses both astrology and art, go and subscribe to.
Hey, pod friends. Jen from the Halfway to Dead podcast here. Quick break for some real talk. Midlife is freaking hard, am I right? Are you ready to ditch the BS, flip the script, and finish this life strong? Of course you are. Join me to listen to real conversations that don't shy away from the hard, messy stuff. And yeah, we get a little woo-woo along the way. Let's hit the road on this midlife spiritual journey together. Halfway to Dead, served up with humor and heart. Listen now wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah.
The
Alison Hazel art it is, actually. I'll put the link below, actually. Why not?
Of course we will.
Yeah.
And maybe we can create some kind of an art community. That would be. I've been missing my art community. I think on my blog, I'm constantly bemoaning. In fact, from my most recent, which of course, when this goes out, it won't be my most recent, but literally
recently,
every time I talk about art, I probably whine about how Dr. Sketchy's has gone away after COVID. And that was my monthly art class, my monthly, get together with the art community, and we would draw for 3 hours, and it took place.
Figure drawings.
Figure drawing, yeah, and of burlesque dancers in Vancouver. So totally perfect, perfect for me, because I love to draw goddesses, and these are like amazing Amazonian kind of heroic women in, scantily clad outfits. They're not just kind of like reclining on a, they're not just looking kind of demure.
They're not come hither, are they?
No, they're looking heroic and awesome and sexy, which is, that I think that was the tagline of Dr. Sketchy's. It was like, why can't life drawing be sexy? And it was for a good decade. And then COVID kind of killed it off, which is, tragic for me personally, but a growth opportunity for some art community somewhere, which I would eventually hope to either join or potentially help build.
Yeah. But that when you were with Dr. Sketchy, that was the catalyst to get you going on the path you are on now.
100%. I mean, without that inspiration, I hesitate to even admit how long I went without even drawing, without even picking up a pencil after art school and being an artist kind of all my, young life. And then just a couple of decades without doing anything whatsoever, almost
not as long as I did.
Maybe 15 years at least without even picking up a pencil, really to draw anything. And people would be like, they would come over and see all these charcoal drawings, and they're like, "Oh, who did that?" I was like, "Oh, I did this in college." And they're like, "Oh my God, I didn't know you were an artist." And I'm like, "Well, I was." But then Dr. Sketchy's came along, and I was like, "Oh wow, this looks cool." And it took a long time for the muscles to even remember what it's like to draw. My shoulders would be so sore. My hands would go numb from, the posture that it took to draw. But I mean, eventually I came away with like a book, a self-published book, calendars every year for like a decade. And I definitely miss that community. I miss the inspiration. And that's one of those things.
Come back soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll put a link to the interview I did with Arwynne regarding her art on the art blog for anyone who's actually interested in what we're actually talking about, because funnily enough, we both do astrology and art. Yeah. And we're actually a bit crafty too, because I know you sew.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've made some jewelry in my time. I've painted shoes, which is weird, but
and I remember a particular lovely lilac blazer that you sewed one day.
Oh God, yeah, that was ages ago. But yeah, I can. Last time my mother came up to visit, she brought like a pile of clothes. Like, this needs hemming, this needs altering, this needs to be taken in a bit. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Can we do this? Can we cut this? And I'm like, yeah. So we just spent an entire afternoon. She would try something on, and I'd be like, nip tuck, sew it, change the thread color, do it again. And it was the first time I touched the sewing machine in months, I have to admit. But
because you put me onto Dresser, which is the only drapers in Vancouver. It's the only one.
And they're closing this year.
Are they?
I know.
I didn't know that.
I am still traumatized about it. It's awful because the neighborhood is...
It's rough down there.
It's awful. Yeah, they've had to board up their windows after COVID. I thought they closed, and they had a big sign, big, not big enough that I noticed it across the street, but it said, we're open, come on in. But they've had to board their windows up because they just got smashed so many times.
Yes.
And it's also the rising cost of rent, and they've been there
I didn't know that.
Yeah, they've been there for decades. It's an institution, and it's a tragedy that they had to close. Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. So So again, well, as I say,
it's a very niche thing, but anyone in Vancouver who is in the same Venn diagram as us of astrology and art is
I like to get my trim there and some recent cottons. I can show you later, but anyway, Yeah, so it's so interesting that you and I do a lot of this creative stuff as well as astrology.
Yeah.
It's not like you're off doing something else and I'm we're actually doing similar things in general, which is crazy.
Sure. Totally.
Crazy.
But yeah, it's that 11th house thing of building that community. So
yes,
please feel free to subscribe to both of those, my blog and your art blog. In addition to listening to our
I'll put links below.
Yeah.
Because it's just something that's it was on the back burner. Well, it is still on the back burner, to be honest, because astrology is on the front burner, and the gas is up on high. But with the art, it's definitely on the back burner, and with the craft, that's really on the warming drawer, if you were like. But it's still going down.
It's under the heat lamp. It's
under the heat lamp.
They've said order up, and someone has not come to deliver it to the yet.
But still, it's actually growing quietly in the background because I'm doing newsletters there too. So I'm at the point now with this 11th house Jupiter where I'm issuing the free astrology newsletter each week. I'm also issuing my paid astrology newsletter, which is the premium content where I really go on a more high level content about astrology, not just your basics. I'm also issuing now twice a month. I've got the art newsletter going out, and then once a month I've got the craft newsletter.
Nice.
I don't think you even get that one, but and I'm thinking, why am I doing this? But it's because Jupiter's in the 11th house, and whilst it's there, I will put my energy into this particular outlet.
Yeah. And
by the time Jupiter moves into my 12th house, I will know what's working and what isn't.
Yeah.
And I can make the decision then.
Totally.
So, that's my thought on that.
That's amazing. I love that. So we are talking about what it looks like in our charts. And we've talked about that for a minute. But we are also interested in what's going on in all of your houses. We're not going to go through individually what Jupiter and Cancer will look like in each of those houses. But we do want you, because it's not a really slow moving planet. It changes once a year. So look at your chart and see where where is your Cancer house, first of all, and where Jupiter will be for the next year. And think about what you can do to lean into that expansion and that expansion of emotional energy, of nurturing energy, of that home-centered, security-oriented, caring sort of energy. Where can you expand your root system?
Yes.
Explore traditions, invest in something to do with the home, building your family, your that root system of values and things that support you and support the future generations that you may have either in your home or in your life or in your sphere. And even if you don't have children, I personally do not, but I have this wonderful network of friends who are such a support system and a chosen family. And I still am very incredibly fortunate to have both parents and a half brother who is expecting his first child in the next. Oh,
so you're going to be Auntie Arwynne?
I am. I'm going to be an actual biological auntie for the first time ever, and not just the crazy Aunt Arwynne to other people's children and pets and whatnot. But so lean into those things. Figure out where it belongs in your chart, and watch out for the pitfalls of excessive smothering love and the desire to sort of cocoon and to smother the loves of your life and the people that you want to protect. Overprotection is obviously a Cancer, Jupiter and Cancer sort of buzzword. Excessive sort of clannishness and wanting to sort of isolate and overly be patriotic and
circle the wagons.
Circle the wagons. That's exactly right. Yes, that kind of those are pitfalls. Those are the don'ts. But it's mostly good. It's mostly
be optimistic.
It's mostly good. Yeah, exactly.
Great. Yeah. So this has been great. We've been talking about Jupiter in Cancer. We've had a closer look at what Jupiter means by itself. We've also considered some of the themes of Cancer, and then we've combined the two things together. So we've got the planet Jupiter going through the sign of Cancer, and we've spoken about a couple of ways that this could be expressed in particular houses in your chart, and we've given you some ideas on what you want to be paying attention to. As we say, this is going to be starting on June the 9th, 2025. And don't miss out on these opportunities,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if you found value in this episode, please do consider sharing it with anybody who would be interested. Make sure you're getting our newsletter, and you can sign up at starzology.com/newsletter. Additionally, definitely make sure that you're following Arwynne, and you can find her at...
I'm at mspink.net. That's mspink.net, and I am blogging once a week. You can sign up to subscribe and get my weekly newsletter, which comes out every Saturday. And I'm blogging about art, books, history, movies, dash of politics, and of course the Badass Goddesses.
Fantastic, which is, as I say, I found that the most interesting bit. Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes, so Arwynne, thank you so much for joining me this time.
Thank you for inviting me. This has been great.
And thanks so much to our listeners, and we'll see you next time.
See you next time.